Welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon, your compass to carbon management. As always, I'm your host, Deb Ryan. On this episode, I sat down with Stacy Richardson, CEO of Mobi Waste, a company laser focused on changing the way we think about trash. Stacy and I talk about the work that Mobi Waste is doing to reduce trash volumes, allowing more to stay out of landfill, and some of the events and the projects that she's working on in and around the greater Houston area. Stacey also challenges the narrative about waste and how we talk and think about waste, more in terms of a circular system, and starts to challenge people and thinking about how do we think about waste as actually a feedstock for other people's processes, and how this can actually reduce costs for people in terms of disposal. Stacey also talks about the work she is doing and the education through the Mobi Waste Outreach Program, a nonprofit she started to teach kids and really all of us about how to think about waste differently. If you'd like to learn more about the education and outreach work that Stacey's doing, I've included a link to her website and as well as her contact details in the show notes. To make sure you don't miss any new episodes, please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. But for now, sit back and enjoy my conversation with Stacey. Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Navigating Carbon. Today I'm joined by Stacy Richardson. Stacy, how are you?
I'm good, Deb. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this conversation. You're the CEO and founder of a company called Mobi, and we're going to talk all about trash today, which is super fun. So give everyone a bit of an overview about what you're doing at Mobi, and what you guys are up to.
Yeah, I'm kind of considered the trash talking CEO, so I talk a lot of trash,
I love
literally.
it.
But
So good.
so Mobi Waste, short Mobi is what we call it. We actually have patented and designed equipment that goes to the source of generation of trash, and we can reduce the volume by up to 70% at the source. So what that does for people is it allows us to create feedstock depending upon what the trash is. It allows us to get more into a load. It allows the end user who wants the feedstock to be able to have more feedstock coming in for their processes. And you as the client where the trash is generated, we look at cutting your waste bill. So it's kind of a win-win all the way through when you look at the line of succession on trash.
I love that. And I mean, to be honest, like the idea of like, because correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are doing this like for domestic users, like it could be for like me, right? Reducing as well as commercial, or is it just commercial, or how are you? Where are you partnering with folks?
Yeah, right now we're just commercial. That is
Yeah,
the
okay,
number one question I get asked all the time is when can I have this at home?
which is cool because
So
yeah,
yeah, so because you can, from trash to compost, right? It can speed up the process of composting
that's
because you
true.
reduce the surface size of everything. So there's a lot of benefits to it. But right now we're commercial.
Okay.
Back in December, we were extremely fortunate to sign on with Halliburton. So they're our SME and building out all of our future equipment. So I can see us going residential in the near future with
Oh,
them
that'd
for
be
sure.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because when I moved to the US, like actually having to pay for trash instead of it just being a utility was so I can see why you get the question a lot, because again, as soon as you start talking about reducing people's bills, you're like, wait a minute, bring it to me. I love that. So
Yeah, that's the biggest thing is when you get asked at work to say, okay, your budget's been reduced by 3 to 5%, and you need to figure out where that reduction comes from. The P&L line item of waste management is never where you look,
mm,
right? And so there are ways now that we can actually help you do that.
I love that.
One of the hotels we're getting ready to start working with, we're doing a pilot with them at the end of the week, and part of that is getting rid of dumpsters and lowering all those surcharges fees and
Oh
fuels
wow.
fees and how many pickups you get just by reducing the volume. So it's really interesting and it's really trashy and a lot of fun.
Well, and, I mean, you've already brought up so many different like industries and different, hotels and, different providers and stuff like that. Like one of the things that fascinates me talking to you and some of the other folks that I've met in this space is around like the supply chain of trash. Like you talk about trash in terms of feedstock for other things and stuff like that. Like, how do you even go about connecting different industries, like thinking about how people need to think about trash differently. Like, what does that even mean? Where do you even start? Right? Like, because we're so used to all being in our own little bubbles in terms of our industries and stuff, whereas you just have to look so broadly. So, like, just unpack that. Like,
Well, it all started with Houston Energy and Climate Week last year, and when you're in a space like that and you have so many incredible people from all over the world that come together, I jokingly say I collect out of the box businesses, right? Because I have companies that want the trash that cannot be recycled because they
Mm.
create a new aggregate for concrete out of it. They want the pizza box, they want the chip bag, right? That we can't recycle, or the number 4 plastic that recyclers won't take because it clogs up their machines. That is feedstock. That's sustainable
Mm.
aviation fuel. That's new decking compost. So the whole problem isn't we're just looking at trash and who wants it, right? Or where should it go? It's really getting down to it and saying this is a new material, this is a new commodity, and we've got to start building those structures out and those systems out that says, okay, when you throw that glass away, it's going to be ground by a company in New Orleans where they put it back into the marshes because now it becomes sand and it builds up the area,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
So it's finding those companies that are just doing the craziest things and saying, "How can I help you? Let
That's
let
so
me let me
cool.
provide you the feedstock," right?
Yeah. By reframing it this way in terms of like more like a circular economy and how do we all kind of work together on this, do you find like, and I mean, I'm guilty of it, right? Like throwing things in, we combine so many things in trash. Like, do you find as you're talking to people that they start thinking about how they can do better about, we've gotten used to separating our recyclables, but you just talked about like some of the plastics and the glass and stuff like that's all different. Like, are you finding people are getting better about thinking about how they separate trash so that it can be useful and things like that? Or is there still a long way to go on that learning curve?
There on that learning curve, there's still a long way to go
Okay.
because as you know, changing habits, what is it, 22 days changes a habit and getting people to do that. And then you got to look at, I live in a rural community where there is no recycling. If we
Mm.
recycle, we have to take it to the next city, right? Which is 20,
Wow.
30 minutes away to be able to recycle. So it is a long way away, but there are some things that are coming that's going to take care of all of that.
Yeah.
So it's finding those out of the box companies, those savants of trash is what I like to call them, and just learning the new technologies that are out there. That's going to just change where the United States is on this issue.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a huge problem. Like just generally, because it's still going to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, right? But there'll still be parts that will have to go to landfill and things like that. But like the landfill problem in America, and I assume in other parts of the world, and I've had this conversation with people in Indonesia and other parts. But like, I mean, I've driven past a landfill just outside of LA. It's huge. I was like, what is that? My husband's like, it's trash. Like, I was like, what the hell? And like, I split my time between Hawaii, and we have to take our stuff. Like we have a huge trash problem in Hawaii because it's a tiny island. Like, like how do we sort of change the conversation? Because there's still going to be some that has to go to landfill, I assume, that's not able to be reused and things. Or how do you view that, like in terms of the true waste, I guess, or I don't know.
So, I've recently been introduced to some people that are actually solving that problem
Really?
because
That's so cool.
yeah, because we're not gonna change behaviors,
Yeah.
right? We may get, yeah, 1%. And when you look at landfills, we've lost 80% of our landfills since 1980. There's only about 1,200 left in the United States,
Oh, really?
and they're filling up fast. So, originally my thought was, well, volume is the problem, and if we reduce the volume, we can solve the problem. And then I met, an incredible gentleman that he and I have been having lots of conversations, and it's about bringing what we're calling a super MRF. And the MRF is essentially one bin,
Okay.
cross-contaminated, dirty, doesn't matter. Imagine the trash truck backing up to it, unloading off of its route versus going to a landfill, it goes to the super MRF. Mobi plays that upstream partner where we can reduce the volume, and we wanna do that because all the AI technology right now cannot decipher a glass bottle in a plastic bag.
Oh,
So
wow.
so if we break that
Yeah.
up, then it can be the AI and the sensors and everything then can separate the trash more efficiently. And then instead of it being sold off to an off taker at the end of the line, we now have options where we can create 6 different kinds of energy off that trash. So we can essentially keep everything out of the landfill, and that's what
That's
we're
so
working
cool.
on now with some really crazy out of the box, people who are just brilliant in their areas of expertise on this.
That's really cool. So, like, as we think about all these very non-traditional supply chains and, like, for people starting to think about some of it, like, what have been some of the real big challenges you've sort of encountered on the Mobi journey so far?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is plastic is light and fuel is heavy, right? Fuel is
Oh.
expensive, and so a lot of that is the supply chain and how do we create that plastic to be more economical, you know?
Mm,
Right now with everything that's going on politically, that plastic is worth a lot more money because gasoline's gonna be on a shorter supply, so
mm,
more companies are actually looking for that plastic. So we're creating that demand right now for it, so that's been the biggest, hurdle to get over is transportation and the cost of
mm.
diesel. The other part of it is, all of this has to happen upstream. And if you have a company and your company, you have, half of the employees want to separate and do the right thing, great. But if the other half doesn't, then again, it goes all into one thing and it
Yeah.
goes to the trash. So that's why we have to look at what technologies are out there, bring all the incredible people together and say, how do we do this in one location? So we can lower the transportation, we can create new energy that can go back to the grid. Example, if you take composting food,
Yep.
there's a lot of water in food. So
Mm.
if we squeeze that food, we now can get that water, then it goes to green hydrogen. We can also pull the humidity out of the air to go to green hydrogen. The leftovers of the food can go to biochar. There's a professor at Rice that's been working on flash jeweling, and for me to explain that
What
would
is
would
that?
would not be pretty, but essentially it's lightning in a bottle, and so when you run that trash through the lightning, it becomes graphene, which is a carbon,
Oh, wow.
that can go into just about everything being a new carbon, right? And we can put,
Yeah.
back to the grid, data centers can be completely run in a circular economy off of the trash. And the whole the super MRF can be run off of the trash. So it doesn't
Wow.
pull anything from the grid. So there are some really great things that are happening. And, I would say within the next 8 to 12 months, breaking ground.
Yeah. Oh, that is so fascinating. And, like, I mean, to be honest, like my we have compost bins here at the house and stuff like that, and we've had like more the like industrial ones. Some parts of Denver have them and things like that. And so it's cool to see. But I'd never actually thought about the water element of stuff. I just like to put it all back in my garden, right, to try and grow some
Right.
food. But like that piece of it is actually fascinating in terms of then what we can actually how like where we can take it beyond just traditional compost and stuff. So I love this idea of like how you're thinking outside the box of this, which kind of goes to my next question around like some of the, I mean, we've sort of talked around some of the opportunities. Like, are there any other kind of pieces that you're really thinking about in terms of how we think about trash as an asset in the circular economy? Because it's, I don't know, it's fascinating. Like,
It really is. So, give you a scenario that we're playing through. When you take uh food waste, right? And there's certain waste that's regulated because it comes off cruise ships or airlines. So if
okay.
anything's in international water, it becomes the term APHIS waste, which is regulated waste, and it
Huh.
cannot go to our landfill until it's treated. And the way it's treated is time, pressure, and heat, right? It goes into an autoclave with a chemical, and then it goes straight to the landfill. So we're putting chemicals back into the landfill.
Hmm.
What if there was another way to do that? What if there were microbugs that could eat the plastic out of the food so that all it left was the food, and then you had a non-toxic chemical that could then kill any potential bugs that might be there, so then it goes back to digesters and becomes compost, and now the company who is paying to take this waste and dispose of it now creates an income line on their budget from it.
Yeah.
These are the conversations we're having, with companies. So it's really, and again, Mobi being able to reduce the volume,
Yep.
that just means we get to treat more faster if we break it into smaller pieces.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, like, what's the strangest, like, connection you found in terms of, like, trash to something really that you just would never have thought of? Like, you've already brought up so many amazing examples, but, like, what's the strangest that you just, like, never really thought was even possible? Like,
I would have to say it's the bugs that eat plastic.
yeah, okay.
And that was the most recent one where,
Yep.
there was a whole my Women of Waste group was, all in Dallas at EarthX, and we're sitting around the table, and one of the guys that was, visiting with us, the next morning, he got up and he looked at me and he's like, I got bugs that can eat plastic out of," and I'm just like, "What? Who are you?" You're like my new favorite person. And he's like, "I've got connections at, prestigious universities and, different departments within the medical center where we can look at all of this under microscopes and labs." And he's like, "Just tell me when to get started." And honestly, I think, Deb, it's not the craziest idea of what we can do with this. It's just when I start telling people what we can do and the things I've learned, they just jump on. They're like, "We wanna be on this
I
train
love
with
that.
you." And just so I just call it collecting, collecting crazy companies, out of the box
Yep.
thinkers, and, giving them a platform to, live their dream while I'm building mine.
That's so cool. And, again, as soon as you talked about this at the top, as soon as you go back to, we can actually take something that is a waste, both in terms of a physical waste, but actually a financial, like burden for companies. Suddenly, like people, it's an automatic way for people to be like, okay, like you can actually reduce my costs, and so like I assume it just opens up from there. In terms of it's an easy sell, right, in that
It
regard. So
it
like
it is,
to a
it
certain
is.
extent,
And,
yeah,
this all started because my son, he's 17, but at the age of 14, he helped develop everything we're doing, so he's on the
that's cool,
patent. And I was
amazing.
still I know. So now I'm just on a mom on a mission is what I tell people because I gotta prove to him that, what he put his mind to can be done.
That's
And,
so cool.
s I started with schools and started
Oh,
talking
of
to
course.
superintendents and principals, and that's how everything just kinda grew. But when you look at putting money back on a school's budget, saving teachers'
Mm,
salaries, or as a mom, I joke that I really don't wanna have to write a check for wrapping paper or tamales or a can of mixed nuts because that's what comes to you every time you turn around is some kind of fundraiser.
yep,
Why don't we utilize what the school is throwing away as a fundraiser?
yeah,
Let's take the ag barns and the manure and the food and everything, and let's create compost out of it, put it in a bag with the FFA of the school, and now you have a fundraiser. Or you take it and put it back
amazing.
into the landscaping of the school, and now you've put hundreds of thousands of dollars back on the budget. So again, it's a systems process that we have to change the mindset
Yeah.
of how we've been doing things and looking at that, what you're throwing away is dollar bills.
Yeah. And we're going to come back to some of the work you're doing on that here in a little bit. But I want to pivot a little bit because there's a big event coming to the US. The World Cup's
Yes.
coming. Um,
Yes.
so talk about what you're doing with the World Cup in Houston.
Yeah, so we're having some crazy conversations, with Midtown Management District, the Sustainability Committee Chair for FIFA, and then a couple of different precincts with Houston about pulling out all the recyclables in downtown and all the businesses and being a kind of a recycling hub, a mini pop-up hub for large
Mm,
events. And so we're really working towards getting everything in line so that we can, help these businesses not go into health code, violate their health code compliance because
yeah.
Houston has a trash problem right now. And I was in the restaurant industry for 17 years. I know on Sunday nights, I know they're a lot of places are out of compliance because one bag sitting next to the dumpster, you're out of compliance
Mm,
and you could be shut down or fined. And so when you're going to bring in, 1 million people for an entire month. So
yeah.
this is way bigger than rodeo, which is huge here.
Yeah.
You're going to have some issues with the health code. And so my biggest thing was when I heard that this could be an opportunity for us is we got to help the small businesses. We got to help the mom and pop shops and
Yeah.
keep them in compliance and reduce their trash bill. One of the things is when I look at trash bills from businesses during rodeo season, they spike hundreds of
Mm,
dollars because of the influx of people, right? They're busier. And
Yeah.
so that's something that what if you could have that influx and not pay 100% of that influx, right?
Yeah.
What if we could put some of that back on your budget just by reducing the volume of waste and getting more in that dumpster?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things you talk about as well, with the units and stuff, like you're able to go to them if I
Yes.
understand it correctly, which like again, as we talk about changing hearts and minds around how people even think about trash, like talk about the impact that has of you being able to go to them and not the other way around.
Yeah,
Like,
the biggest thing is no capital expenditure.
yeah.
You don't have to insure, you don't have to have the manpower, we can come to you, we can do a subscription model where it's a couple times a week. You could do a lease where we put wheels on it, roll it into your trash room and plug it in. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can do so
Mm,
that the business owner doesn't have the huge capital expense. And then actually we show them how to put money back on their budget. So
that's so cool.
that's the whole thing behind it is, "Let me help you find the money you're missing." And there's a lot of places that don't have any kind of sustainability plan, they have pallets stacking up or they have different chemical bottles stacking up, and when I ask them what they're doing with it, they just kinda have that deer in the headlight, and I'm like, yeah, pallets are $5 to $15 back in your pocket per pallet, depending on
Yep.
how it's made. I said, "Let me find you somebody who's gonna pay you for all those pallets,"
Yeah.
and it's just one of those things that multiplies where, not just my company being able to put money back on your budget, but let me show you how to build a sustainability plan that
Yeah.
puts money back on your budget.
It's it's so it's such an important piece in this conversation because, like, as I talk to people in the broader kind of sustainability space and things like that, you know, this it's often kind of not looked down on, but like there's a lot of people who are just like sustainability is always cost to me and things like that. And so like you're completely flipping the narrative around that with companies that are not even thinking about it, but they'd like to do something, like a lot of companies out there would like to be able to, do good things and reduce their footprint. And yet you're providing them a solution that they weren't even maybe even thinking about it from a sustainability point of view. It's
Right,
just their trash, right? Like
right.
it's such a cool, you know, have you found that people have really resonated not just with the cost piece, but with, "Oh, we could actually be doing something that we didn't even realize we could?" Like, has that been something that's factored in when people have been talking about this as well?
Yeah, 100% on that. So, I'm sitting in a meeting with Harris County, and I'm having a conversation about illegal dumping.
Hmm,
And how can we help, with illegal dumping on site? And one of the biggest things was tires. This
mm.
particular precinct within the county has over 3,000 tires a month through illegal dumping. And so
What?
my yeah,
Like,
that's just one precinct. There's 4, you know? And so I'm having this
crap.
conversation and I'm like, "Okay, tires is not my thing, but I've created this incredible group of women and we jokingly call ourselves the Women of Waste, right? We're women-owned waste and recycling collective. And everything from we build roads with tires to EV charging to hazmat, everything involved. And so I said, "Well, if I have a solution for those tires that's gonna put a huge feather in your cap and your commissioner is gonna absolutely love it, will you take a meeting with a friend of mine?" And
Yeah.
so it's a way to, bring other companies to the table that normally wouldn't have that opportunity in those conversations. So I bring in, we call each other trashy sisters. I bring in specialty waste group, Emily from there, and,
Yep.
and I sat her at the table. And, one of the part of the conversation was, okay, you have a contract with someone who's hauling off those tires, but what are they really doing with them?
Yeah. Take
They're
them to
you
landfill.
you
Like,
take 'em to landfill, or are they redumping them so you can pick them up so they can redump them? It was one of those where you're not having anything validated, you don't have anything in writing that says where they go to, and one of the great things Emily can do is she's got a partner who'll take those tires, and in a closed loop system on a kiln, they now become energy because of their BTU status,
mm,
they become energy to run a cement kiln. So they get
amazing.
completely used, and it's just one of those things where now you can have the documentation for your ESG goals
Mhm.
to say you're actually doing something smart and not just being able to talk about it, not having the paper to back it up.
Yeah.
So,
And again, something that totally would have just been a cost line item on that precinct's county of like tire dumping, like never really even potentially thinking about it from like a sustainability point of view and stuff like that. And yet it tells such a good story. Like you said, it's traceable, like, and we can just start thinking about. I've always actually said that emissions and is to me is like waste so if we start thinking about all of this as waste and how we do better. I think it's a great story. So I want to talk about you talked about like the work that you're doing with the school and how we think about changing kind of hearts and minds around how we even approach our waste. Like,
yeah.
um, you're doing some work with a group, Mobi Waste Outreach. So I would love for you to talk about what the 501(c)(3) is doing and like what you've really kind of learned from that. Like,
Yeah, so again, my son, I put him as the founder of this nonprofit
I love that.
because what he does is he literally takes trash, transforms it, and creates income out of it.
That's
So,
so cool.
the whole Moby got started when he found a four-wheeler sitting next to a trash dumpster, and he brought it home, swapped the motor, welded, fabricated, put 1960 Rice tractor tires on it, got 150,000 hits on TikTok, and he sold it. And so that is
Wow.
how both companies started, was him
Amazing.
reimagining trash. So with the outreach, what we do is we work with, community centers, other nonprofits, schools, where we go in and we teach, about recycling and sustainability. And what I like to do is, I'll have buckets on a table and I bring in all this trash and I have the kids separate it and tell me
Mhm.
what it can be. And one of the buckets on there, it's like special recycling or just recycling or goes to a landfill. And then I have one that says future. And the kids really get interested in the future one because this is where their little minds start going. And that future, if they put something in there, they have to tell me what that can be. So if they put a Tide
Oh,
bottle in there, they have to explain to me that we can have paralysis and we can change this into, a new commodity, and here are the different commodities. And if they obviously don't know all of those words, that's the conversation we start, right? So
yeah.
we start talking about, what is that cup in your hand? What is that glass bottle? That glass bottle can now go back to the marshes in Louisiana, and it can save the marshes. So there's lots of conversation around that. And then the biggest thing is, we want kids to think outside the box. We have entrepreneurial program where we can do with schools and have a whole classroom setting where they can start their own business in school. My son's had his own business since he was 14. Uh,
Yeah, it's so cool.
and it's, again, making it out of trash. His first business was taking horseshoes and different scraps of metal, welding and sandblasting and painting, and selling them at markets, farmers markets. And so there's lots of things you can do. And a lot of these kids just need somebody to listen to them and understand them and guide them. And so that's what outreach really does, is helps them think outside the box and look at trash a little differently. And maybe they'll be the next inventor of something really cool.
That's so cool. And like I think back to like again going through when, I was at school, even in Australia, and like the reduce, reuse, recycle and the little arrow or the little triangle, right? Like, and I feel like now like our generation, like, okay, we put stuff in a recycling bin, but like going to that next level of actually the separation and again change, it's taken a generation for us to change behavior around recycling. So like I love that you're starting with the schools and with the kids and stuff in terms of what that looks like. For anyone that's interested in, you coming and doing a program or whatever it is, like, is there ways for people to reach out to you? We can put that in the show notes. And, I'd love for, if people are interested to be able to do that.
Yeah,
So
they can go to the website and connect with me. They can fill out a form,
awesome.
it'll come right to me, or they
Yeah.
can just email me,
Awesome.
srichardson@mobiwaste.com, and
Cool.
they'll talk right to me.
Awesome. No, we will definitely make sure we include that because I think it's again, it's a really cool kind of piece. So like as we kind of get to the end, so like other than like what's next for Moby Waste and for you, and I know the World Cup's going to be a big piece as you're looking at that this year and stuff, but like what's on your radar? Like what are you really excited about?
So, I'm really excited about the conversations with the Super Murf we're having.
Mm.
The World Cup coming is gonna be life-changing for us. We're already, one of my directors is already having conversations in LA with what's coming there in 2028, and so we're starting some of those conversations around the Olympics and
Oh,
what can we
amazing.
do there to help with the trash. My understanding, SoFi is gonna have 3 events in one day, so they're going to have to turn that stadium 3 different times, which is gonna be
That's
incredible
insane.
to witness. So there's some big conversations there, and then the future for us, where I really wanna see us go, I eventually want the Mobi Sustainability Institute where we can have these brilliant minds come and start looking at what the next generation of a Mobi looks like or what the next generation of trash looks like so that we can, kind of merge the outreach and the for-profit company together in a sustainability institute. So that's
That's
the
so cool.
biggest thing down the line.
Yeah.
If you ask me what my 5, 7, 10-year vision would be, that's where we're headed.
I absolutely love that because it's again, it's the work that then you're doing through the outreach, like you said, is like sparking the idea in kids and young professionals, and then actually like seeing that through to fruition for them and stuff like that. Like it's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Stacey, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been fun talking trash. I love it. Such a fun conversation. It's
Yeah.
just yeah. I love how
Yeah,
we're thinking about
the
reimagining.
one thing I ask everybody, I have one ask that I ask everybody, and I, would love for you to talk trash about me in rooms I'm not in.
We will try and make sure that that happens everywhere it is. I love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Deb.